Well, hello, hi, congratulations. Thanks for taking the time out. I know you guys must be really, really busy, but Megan, can you tell me what it's like?
Great to see you. You've got this blockbuster book. I've been reveling in your extracts. Very juicy.
You know how the word bombshell gets thrown around so casually these days that it barely means anything anymore? Every headline screams it. Every thumbnail promises it. Most of the time, it's just noise dressed up as revelation. But this was different, because when this story landed, it didn't explode loudly. It didn't scream for attention. It waited, and that's what made it terrifying. If there's one thing Tom Bauer understands better than almost anyone alive, it's timing. He doesn't rush, he doesn't panic post, he doesn't throw accusations into the wind hoping something sticks. He listens, he observes, he lets tension thicken until it's almost unbearable. And only when the silence starts to choke the room, he lights the match. This time, that match didn't fall into calm air. It landed when the Sussex narrative was already drenched in gasoline. California sunshine, wellness sermons, carefully curated sincerity, smiles meant to sell healing. But behind the branding, critics were already whispering that something didn't add up. One commentator scoffed on a televised panel, pointing out how they preached love while publicly torching their own families, their country, their past. And then,
you know, we hear the word bombshell, and I think certainly it's true in this case. Meghan, Harry and the war.
Came the shock, not that people were asking questions, but how deep those questions were about to go. What no one expected, and what Prince Harry certainly didn't expect, was that the questions weren't about contracts or interviews or bitterness anymore. They were about something far more dangerous. Because this time, Tom Bauer wasn't dancing around character flaws. He wasn't resurfacing old grievances. He wasn't teasing implications for clicks. He was aiming straight at the foundation. And the moment he just hinted, that he was holding material capable of collapsing the entire Sussex story in one catastrophic blow, Harry didn't respond like a man secure in the truth. He responded like someone cornered. According to this telling, within hours, legal threats allegedly started flying. Messages passed quietly through intermediaries, editors, and producers were warned. Words like defamation, injunction, retraction were tossed around like smoke grenades. The goal wasn't clarity, it wasn't truth, it was silence. Shut it down, suffocate it before it spread. But that's when Bauer did something far more dangerous than shouting. He slowed down. He let it be known carefully, surgically, that what he was preparing to release wasn't gossip, not vibes, not anonymous internet chatter. It was documents, records, timelines, witnesses, material that doesn't need defending because it stands on its own.
Up in California, to spread wellness and love and sincerity, have done the exact opposite.
And then came the sentence that changed everything. This isn't about rumors, he said calmly. This is about paternity. The heir left the room. Because questioning the legitimacy of a royal child isn't tabloid sport. It's existential. It strikes at bloodlines, titles, inheritance, the one thing any monarchy cannot afford to gamble with: certainty. Harry's reaction in this account was immediate and volcanic. Phones thrown, doors slammed, advisors frozen out, lawsuits demanded, statements demanded, total annihilation of the story demanded. But beneath the rage wasn't confidence. It was panic. Because if the claims were nonsense, there was one option that could end everything instantly. One test, one confirmation, one undeniable answer. And yet, no one reached for it. What Bauer hinted at next was colder, more precise, almost clinical. He suggested that the material he was preparing tied together sealed pregnancy records, unexplained travel anomalies, and an early connection between Meghan Markle and a wealthy Colombian businessman, a name that had somehow escaped mainstream scrutiny until now. The internet went feral, flight logs resurfaced, charity trips were re-examined. Old interviews slowed down frame by frame, screenshots clawed back from forgotten corners of the web, dates circled, timelines overlapped. A pattern began to form that looked disturbingly coherent. And then came the witness. Not a faceless source, not a distorted voice, but a man the public already knew, a man erased from the fairy tale like an inconvenient prologue. Trevor Engelson. Before he even spoke, the internet detonated again. At exactly 12:40 a.m. West Coast time, when gossip spreads fastest and defenses are weakest, an anonymous account appeared. No history, no photo.
Solace after she died, and where I knew I had found a soulmate in my wife.
One post, one image, one sentence. Everyone thinks they know. They know nothing at all. The photograph was intimate in a way that made people uncomfortable. Meghan in a luxury hotel hallway, angled toward a man who was very clearly not Harry. Warm lighting, private space, unguarded moment. His arm around her waist crossed a line that didn't look accidental. His build was wrong, his posture was wrong. And on his wrist, a leather bracelet with a small metal cross. Online sleuths moved fast, too fast. They claimed the bracelet matched one worn by a Colombian businessman seen months earlier in promotional footage. Screenshots multiplied, jewelry comparisons exploded. The man wasn't lanky like Harry. He was solid, athletic, confident in a way that read money, not monarchy. Then gone. The account vanished, deleted, scrubbed. Professional. But screenshots are forever. Right on cue, Tom Bowers stepped forward, not with hysteria, not with emojis, but with a single chilling line. Some stories don't disappear when you delete them. They disappear when the truth is proven. This one hasn't been. Then the sentence that froze the internet: the firstborn child may not belong to the man the public believes. No names, no accusations. Just implications sharp enough to cut glass. Hours later, the announcement dropped. A new podcast series, weekly episodes, documents, witnesses. No spectacle, exposure. I've reviewed records from Hollywood to Colombia, Bowers said calmly. What I found changes everything. Harry's camp responded with fury. Denials, threats, noise, but noise doesn't extinguish fire. And still, no Natas. Episode 1 didn't end with fireworks. It ended with something worse. Unease. The kind that crawls under your skin and refuses to leave. Because Tom Bauer never shouted. He never accused. He simply laid out inconsistencies and let listeners do the most dangerous thing of all: connect dots on their own. And once people start doing that, there's no way to unring the bell. By the time episode 2 dropped, the atmosphere had shifted. This wasn't scandal anymore, it was belief. And belief is far more volatile than proof. Proof waits patiently for labs and courtrooms. Belief spreads instantly, through instinct, through pattern recognition, through that gut level feeling that something just doesn't sit right. Bauer understood that better than anyone. He didn't accuse, he curated doubt with surgical precision. Every pause was intentional, every sentence measured. He never crossed the legal line because he didn't need to. The audience crossed it for him. Episode 2 opened without music, no dramatic build, just the faint sound of a throat clearing. And then Bauer said evenly that he wasn't speaking to an anonymous source this time. He was speaking to someone who lived it. That's when a voice people hadn't heard in years filled the feed. Trevor Engelson didn't sound angry. That's what unsettled people. He sounded tired. The kind of tired that comes from watching the world celebrate a polished version of history you know isn't clean, while you sit quietly holding details no one ever asked for. He didn't start with accusations. He started with context, the early marriage, the ambition, the subtle shift that eventually became impossible to ignore. How doors opening seemed to change priorities, how international contacts appeared suddenly, aggressively, how secrecy grew alongside opportunity. She wasn't cheating the way people imagined, Trevor said quietly. It wasn't emotional, it was strategic. That single word detonated comment sections everywhere. Strategic. He talked about late nights, unexplained trips, conversations that stopped cold the moment he walked into a room. How he learned not to ask certain questions because the answers came wrapped in condescension. You don't think big enough, you wouldn't understand how this works. Then he described the night that changed everything. The hotel, the hallway, the smell of coffee and disinfectant, the hum of elevator doors closing behind him. He hadn't gone there to confront her. He just wanted clarity. Instead, he saw a man exiting a room she'd insisted she was alone in. A man with an accent I didn't recognize, Trevor said. Confident, comfortable, like he belonged there. When Bauer asked what Meghan's reaction had been, Trevor paused. Not guilt, not shock, calculation. She didn't deny it, he said. She reframed it. Are sharing a peek at life in California with little Archie, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's ground. Networking opportunity, a relationship that wasn't personal, she claimed, but necessary. Necessary. She told him this was the kind of man who changes lives. The marriage collapsed shortly after, not because of one incident, but because trust dissolved. And years later, when Trevor noticed the same Columbia connections resurfacing during her royal chapter, something clicked in a way that made his his stomach turn. I started wondering, he admitted, whether some stories don't end when you think they do. The internet imploded. Clips from the podcast spread everywhere within minutes. TikTok stitched reactions at warp speed. YouTube breakdowns appeared before the episode even finished. Reddit threads ballooned overnight, but through all the noise, one question drowned out everything else. If this is all lies, why not end it instantly? The Dina test. Again. And again, nothing. Behind closed doors, according to this telling, Prince Harry was unraveling. Not publicly, not in statements, but privately where there were no cameras and no scripts. Friends noticed his voice shaking on calls, his temper flaring, his fixation on reaction videos he swore he wasn't watching. He was watching all of it. The worst part wasn't Trevor's story. It was the timelines. Online sleuths aligned dates with ruthless precision. The Colombia trip, the Australia tour, the shifting pregnancy announcement, the absence of medical specifics, the lack of traditional documentation, the unusually controlled appearances before and after Archie's birth. Individually, each detail could be dismissed. Together, they formed something that looked disturbingly intentional. Harry began asking questions he'd never allowed himself to ask. About dates, about doctors, about why everything surrounding Archie's birth felt so managed, so insulated from scrutiny. Meghan felt the shift immediately. The way he stopped meeting her eyes, the way his questions lost their softness. When he finally asked it, quietly, almost pleading, the room froze. Why won't you just do the test? She didn't cry, she didn't scream, she went still. And Prince Harry are sharing a peek at life in California with little Archie. Then she turned it on him with surgical precision. How dare you? She snapped. After everything she'd endured, after everything she'd sacrificed, he was siding with them. The royals, the media, Tom Bower, the mob. Harry shouted back, not diplomatically, not polished, but like a man whose identity was collapsing in real time. This isn't about them, he said. This is about me not knowing if my son is actually mine. That was the moment something irreparable cracked. She accused him of betrayal, of prejudice, of letting palace paranoia poison his mind. She listed every headline, every slight, every pain she claimed she'd absorbed for him. And then she delivered the line that stopped everything cold. If you force this, she said quietly, you destroy us. Not if you're wrong, if you force it. Harry walked out without answering. Outside their walls, the pressure mounted. Anonymous palace staffers hinted at unresolved documentation. Claims of unprecedented meetings circulated, nothing confirmed. All devastating. Buckingham Palace stayed silent, and silence did the most damage of all. Bower repeated the same line in interviews, calm and unflinching. Innocent people don't fear verification. By episode 3, the question had shifted. It was no longer, is this true? It was, what are they hiding? And inside a mansion built on sunlight and carefully curated narratives, Harry sat alone with a realization that terrified him more than any headline ever could. That the rebellion he built his life around, the family he abandoned, the crown he walked away from, might all have been sacrificed for a story he never fully verified. And once doubt takes root, it doesn't wait for facts. It destroys everything in its path.